Familiarity with the complex interdimensionalism of the plan that unfolded allows us to discard and dispense with some of the more convenient denials. For example, people will say as a mantra or shibboleth, oh, conspiracies don't work very well because people who expose them, people talk. When the truth is that conspiracy worked extraordinarily well, and it does no good to talk about it. So, for example, we know that the primary root of the issue was that it was two virgins' pussy ball or moral ball over Midori Goto, the symbol of Japan, music, violinist, clocked to her 25th birthday, which is the age when women in Japan are said to cease to be viable as bachelorettes. Because it was this framework, we also know that from the script that Nabucco, whose stupid code had said of what boys should do and girls should do, is described. What's the name of the star of the film Children of Hiroshima? And in the neighborhood, there was only one Japanese family, Shiono. We know that from the mosaic that this implies vengeance of Shi, vengeance of Ono. So they chose me because I was a little boy from the CVL 30, the U.S. San Jacinto. Gabriel even put out a song called San Jacinto, broadcasting loud and clear this phenomenon. Greg Carl was a war gamer who lived across the street. Jeff Thompson also was in the Japanese employment circle who lived across the street. He built dams in Japan, and he also built clubhouses around the neighborhood. He probably had a hand in the building of Clem's shack. Greg Carl had a note game that led to a bird bath. We know that Greg Carl's initial encounter of the X mode of being tainted by the shadow of the adversary refers to the fact that Didi Mancini had been vetted by Nicholas DeBarno, who made an appearance at Pamela's restaurant, whose menu is encrypted with things about Gail Burson's ideas. So when they say that Bibi Netanyahu is a deep, dark bastard, because for one thing, it's a story of the bird. Ian Widemaker had me shoot a bird with the BB gun. BB, it's like baby, and Elizabeth Blumenfeld, Beth Blumenfeld, BB. So there was a Wade BB who knew Martin Edelman. So you have Henry Wade, Roe versus Wade, who sheriff of Dallas, who framed Lee Harvey Oswald and set him up to be killed by the Carousel Club. So BB is like baby, BB. In fact, Widemaker yelled one day, and I looked up. As soon as I looked up, a water balloon splattered all over my face, which was clearly an illusion, as was his concept, his exclamation, idea has struck the mind. It's a Kennedy assassination. Widemaker showed me a number of grisly things and went into neurosurgery after playing King Crimson's notorious album that has the line, neurosurgeons scream for more. That paranoia's poison door. His gang, the McGarvey gutter snipes, used to talk about pigment and figment, and Greg Carl talked about a dialectic established at the outset between paranoia and poison. So there's these interlocking frameworks. And one day, winemaker's ceiling began to drip like it tested the D'Urbervilles. And we were told to go upstairs to find out what was wrong. And we threw the water chair out the window because it was leaking. But they played King Crimson for me. The mother's name was Edith and the sister's name was Patricia, just like Fripp's mother Edith and sister Patricia. Fripp in his 23rd birthday picture looks conspicuously like Michael Tive, the girl who up the street taught music was named Rondi Tag, like Ronald Dog Tag, or Rodney, your dinner's ready, from The Cheerful Insanity of Giles, Giles, and Fripp, which predated King Crimson. And you have these interlocking frameworks. David Cohen's father was actually named in the Burston script. David Cohen was notorious Jewish who would go, "Oh, you hit me," he'd slap his own hands. If you're listening, he'd slap his hands and put his hands in his cheek. "Oh, you hit me." This indicated it was a trick. Saul Brecker, one of his friends, used to take your hand and refuse to let go, and then start shouting at you, "Let go of my hand, let go of my hand." So the trickery and the stridency of the symbolism is perfectly clear. Two Virgins came from John Lennon, and he knew about it. It's encrypted into cinema. It's one of the pieces of cinema semiotic that's most notoriously brazen and easy to prove with research into the interlocking framework of international cinema. The war in Ukraine was a lawn mowing machine. They are pretending to be in conflict to hide the fact that they were speaking in unison about two virgins' pussy ball, two Vlads, Vlad Putin and Vlad Zelensky. Zell had been saying, what would you think? Well, Mount Desert Island was an agent of Mount Desert Island, who they said represented the Jewish Defense League because he was running an AIDS entrapment operation. Robert Fripp claimed to protect Leslie Sinetti Katz, the Leslie who looked like a mouse referred to in the Burston letters. She was a valedictorian of Ellis Girls School, where her partners were arrested for a $6 million museum heist, John Schulman and someone else. One of the gutter snipes' parents worked at Ellis Girls School. And Zell Lansky is like Waspansky, Lenin, and Zell. He was talking about a scheme to transform the human race by injecting the blood, but he promoted Joseph Goebbels. So Putin is like Putin, or P-U-tin man searching for oil. So they're in cahoots about the whole thing. And supposedly, the chivalric code will rescue us from what they call overpopulation, while the billionaires get the drone wars and the murder robots on ready from the assembly lines to exterminate us. They won't even have to send out flesh and blood soldiers anymore. So when you look at what they've done, you see an interconnecting framework. You can refute their nonsense about overpopulation. I mean, one of the sandbaggers, George Galloway, has been married repeatedly. So the idea isn't to restrict people's romantic relationships so much as to develop sustainably, have a sustainable development societies so that the population stabilizes as a result of awareness and good judgment. And one of the reasons why people so-called overproduce children is because in poor countries, that's their safety net because of child mortality. But none of the people who are banging the drum for ideology, which is just mass dissembling, care much about what is true and what is false. They're getting away with creating a media machine that people identify with. Yeah, NAACP played into Two Virgins Pussy Bowl. They killed my father with the help of white extremists and Japanese extremists. It's important to understand that the Green Party is an arc of colors symbolically in media. They have token representatives. And they went along with this because they were given Barack Obama and Maduro Goto as a symbolic team through Jeffin Corporation. The Traitor Joe believed, he claimed that the traitor Joe Biden, Traitor Joe, that he was building a more perfect union by promoting symbols like Native American symbols. Like Reagan did this. He drew upon the hostility and historic resentment of Native Americans and black militants to get them to cheer the murder of JFK because they wanted a white man to kill, and it was so he became Ronald Reagan became a kind of Chief Joseph because Yoko Ono promoted his militant hostility for JFK through the lens of Native American tabloid thinking. So Trader Joe did this too. He's the one who called Barack Obama the leader of the pecking order. He had it set up so that no matter who we voted for, we were at the mercy of his friend Bibi. When I was a child, the Pitman gang, which is like quarrymen, lay in wait, and they kidnapped me and tortured me, and they forced me to use inhalants. They dip a rag in paint thinner and put it in a paper bag, and I had to put it over my face and breathe it in a place called King's Estate, which is like King's Heavenly Estate. Across the street from a facility where Josh Angris of the Israeli Air Force used to taser mentally retarded children. At least that facility he worked there and they got in trouble there. And Jen Rubin, whose likeness appears on a Roman pig film from the spinoff of the Neva Corporation cinema. So they actually gave me a nerve agent while I was crackling, and they had me in a garage, and they were speaking to me in tongues while forcing me to use inhalants when I was about 12 or 13 years old. A Van de Graaff Generators aerosol gray machine came with their memo boards and their 90-year-old Peter Giles marathon runners and said, "We don't believe Jimmy Carrey's story. We believe the boy Robert's story, who tells us that Jimmy was okay." So they just ticked off the ledger of lies and slanders and said that all of that was the truth. And planted evidence on me and claimed I was a reckless driver at Kelly Elementary when I was a furious passenger who quit the job over the incident. Burston, for example, is a name like Tony Blair. Blair and Burston are both from The Exorcist. So we're dealing with a judicial farce of parochial extremism wriggling from the finger of the nostril of the sadist savage of Central Catholic, Pope Carl, and his minions.